Can you give us some of your thoughts on the subject of the budget and what you picked up, some of the intricacies that you may have picked up as you were sitting in on the budget hearings?
Yes, and by the way, I did watch a lot of it at home too.
Okay.
It's sometimes more comfortable in your own home to watch on television. And in as much as I wasn't going to give any input publicly, I thought that was a good way to go. Yeah, I think we're caught with an either-or situation as it was presented. Either deficit spending or the employees have got to go. And of course the city went with deficit spending the first year, which is going to be difficult to live with. There's no doubt about it, because we're going to have to be careful. I think, however, that if they would have worked the budget a little bit better, I think that deficit could have been cut down even further. However, we are going to be stuck with it for the next year. And the thing is that after one more year of that, there isn't going to be any money. So there's got to be a way out of the deficit spending, and I'm not in favor of laying off employees per se. Attrition, yes, and if we don't have to ever replace the position, or at least not in the future, I would go along with that. I'd spoken with a police officer the other day, and he tells me he's leaving. He's moving back to Ohio for family and personal reasons. There's a case of probably $80,000 to $100,000 more that if we don't replace that position, we can probably survive okay. And there's some other positions there that I don't think we need to replace as they come up, and it should help a little bit. The one thing that was not discussed, and I noticed, were ways of raising more money in Mesquite. They talk about cut. They talk about, they know how limited the funds are coming in. And I've got some solid ideas, I think, that would raise some money. And of course, you know, that word taxes is an evil, evil word. But there are kinds of taxes that don't affect everybody and are very selective. In other words, you don't have to participate if you don't want to participate.
Can you give us an idea of one or two of those?
I was looking at what we call a city sin tax, and it's been done in other places. So this is not a unique thing. I didn't think of this out of nowhere. I thought, what do other cities do? They're small. They need to raise money. Their tax base is declining, and several of them have gone to a city sin tax. And basically, it's a tax on alcohol and tobacco that is sold in the city. Now, there's arguments pro and con. One, if that's imposed, then the sales of the product will go down. Well, is that such a terrible thing if sales of tobacco go down? We're all fighting for clean lungs and clean air. And smoking is a selective thing. If you don't want to smoke, you don't smoke. If you want to cut down because the price has gone up, then you cut down. It would bring in a lot of money. Then a question was raised to me the other day, well, how do you collect it? Well, I went back into that too, and I spoke with one of the accountants in town, and he said it can be done. It's a simple auditing process, and we would raise a lot of money. How much, I'm not sure. What kind of a structure I'd ever propose, I'm not positive at this point, but it's something we need to investigate, and that's something we haven't been doing. Somebody at the City Council, I heard in the background in the audience, said, well, how about raising property taxes? Well, property taxes are high now, and I, for one, don't care to pay higher property taxes. I don't smoke, and I'm not biased against anybody that smokes, that's their prerogative. But if somebody wants to go to the liquor store and purchase a 12-pack of beer and pay an additional $1 tax as an example, and that dollar tax stays right here in Mesquite to support our community, I'm 100% in favor of it. Now, I know my neighbors might say, well, hey, I drink beer and I don't like this idea. But you know what? They can either drink a beer or two less a week or pay the money. And the third argument about that whole point was, well, we'll go elsewhere and buy it. Not here. We're a very unique situation here. And that's why we have so many Utah clientele purchasing liquor and tobacco in Mesquite. If you're a Mesquite resident, you're not going to go to Utah to purchase. We know that. That's a given. Okay. The nearest place is Moapa. And I was down in Moapa to check the prices, and there's no bargains. So the next stop is Las Vegas. Well, I can't imagine anybody trying to save a couple dollars spending $40 round trip on gasoline. So this is just an idea. of
Okay.
what can we do? Because we're in a rough situation, and I don't think they thought the scenarios out carefully enough.
Okay.
Let's run deficit and leave it at that for the year, let the new council play with that one. I think we can do more than that.
Okay, thank you. The city manager was released from his position last week. Councilman Smith mentioned in a follow-up email interview that he favored hiring a mayor's assistant rather than a city manager. Other people say that too much of the council and mayor authority and responsibilities were transferred to a non-elected official in the city manager's position. What are your thoughts on this subject?
Okay, that was probably true, that a lot of power was turned over to the city manager, but I don't think, and not being in the office to observe, that the city manager twisted any arms particularly to get to where he was at. And the same thing was said about the severance program, that he negotiated a 6-month severance package, but the city gave it to him. They could have said no. You know, our bottom line is 3 months by the ordinance and left it at that. We've been operating under a very strong city manager, weak mayor, city council for as long as I can recall since I've been here in Mesquite. Is it the only way to go? No. I came from a place where we had a strong mayor, strong city council with no city manager, and government operated just fine.
Okay.
Councilman Smith's comment about an assistant to the mayor, I would certainly not say no to it. We need an alternative right now, and we especially need an alternative to save some money. And if that saves money, and it's legal, because I've been told 2 things now, that under NRS we need a city manager. So that's something I have to investigate, or have at least the city attorney look into and see exactly what can we do. So am I in favor of operating without a city manager? Yes.
Okay.
But the caveat to that is if it doesn't work, we can always look at getting a city manager. You know, we shouldn't put things in concrete where it's one way or another and there's nothing in between. Yeah, I'm open to all suggestions.
Okay, thanks. It's apparent that the incoming mayor and council will be selecting a new permanent police chief to replace Chief Law, since Lieutenant Tanner is only serving as an interim chief. Should you be one of the council candidates that are elected, what standards would you use to help select the new chief of police?
Well, I think there's standards in place right now as far as selecting a chief of police. I think we do have to advertise and go to the outside, and I think it's only fair to do so. I certainly would not discount Mr. Tanner. I think he's an excellent candidate for the position. But we have to look everywhere to get the absolute best we can get for the money. And I would not settle for second best.
Okay, any specific criteria or standards that you would use to evaluate potential candidates?
Number one, experience, I think is the key, and a breadth of experience. And I think that's one of the key things. You don't know how somebody's going to perform on the job until they're actually on the job. You can come in with a resume that has nothing but gold stars after it and be a failure at what you do. You can sell yourself as being the best and not be the best. So I think there's a decent set of standards there now. And again, we have to hold whoever we hire to these positions right to the fire. They've got to produce. We need objectives. We need to manage by objectives, and that's been my philosophy all along, that perhaps they haven't been doing this in the past.